Bounty hunters. We don't need that scum.
I'll take on any job for the right price.
You are free to use any methods necessary, but I want them alive. No disintegrations.
As you wish.
He's all yours, bounty hunter.
Bounty hunting is a complicated profession.
Welcome in to the Carbonite Chronicles, presented by the Hyperspace, podcasting in the 25th century. This podcast is dedicated to the Disney Plus mega release, The Mandalorian. I'm one of your hosts, Matt.
I'm another one of them, and I am Mike.
And my name is Jared.
Well, gentlemen, as always, before we get into the details, the nitty-gritty, we should probably give them a little warning.
Oh yeah, hit it.
That's right, folks. Turn it off if you don't want to be spoiled, because we are going to be spoiling the living daylights out of this episode. So, The Gunslinger, Episode 5. Wow. Where to even begin?
Why don't we begin at the beginning? That's a good place to usually start. Is the beginning.
So what do we see? We see out
So we're going back to chapter 1.
No, damn you.
Oh.
No, we're going to start in space with a little dogfight, which we haven't seen yet in this show.
Well, that guy was all over him.
Now, you know his pursuer, what that ship reminded me of?
What's that?
It was one of the Naboo starfighters. Now, that seems odd, but if you
It
go
was
back,
one of them, or it just looked
no,
like one of them?
It kind of had the same profile, but I don't think it was one. If it was heavily modified.
That could be the case. It seemed like a single, like a cockpit small fighter. It wasn't like an extensive kind of frigate, so.
Yes, true.
But what a great sequence, man. Loved it.
And, they are doing that scene. I don't know if you saw the behind-the-scenes reel they put out at Celebration. I think it was one of the many videos that had to be pirated from that particular convention. But they're using motion control camera rigs and models.
Oh, I remember that.
For those
I remember
shots.
them talking about
That's
that.
so cool. Good for them.
Yeah. And they've got a little motion control rig in their studio, and they use that.
Yeah, didn't some guy just build it? It's like he just built it from scrap or something like that.
Yeah. He 3D printed a bunch of stuff, and they're using models and a motion control rig.
Wow, that's great. Obviously, it looked fantastic. So
That when they took him out, when that fighter exploded. I like that. Yeah, that second of the dude in the cockpit screaming.
I know.
anything with fire is the best deaths in this show so far.
Yeah, when she's disintegrating.
It's like the ship exploded, and they cut to him screaming, and then they cut back, and the ship's still exploding. It's kind of strange.
Boy, hey, this episode was directed by Dave Filoni and written by Dave Filoni.
I noticed that. Is this the first one not written by John?
Yes.
Well, this one really was a callback to all Star Wars fans. So.
Oh man, are you kidding me?
I messaged you guys, and I said Star Wars went home.
Well, that makes sense. I caught this late in the day before we recorded this, so I'm still fresh on it here. And man, so the Mandalorian is still being pursued. Obviously, he's a marked man and a marked baby Yoda, and his ship gets kind of wrecked in this dogfight. So he's forced to take safe harbor in a planet and
another desert planet.
Well, not another,
but
maybe
the first desert planet.
Desert planet.
And when I heard the radio communication, and it was the Mos Eisley spaceport.
Well, I recognized the planet immediately, and I thought, is that Tatooine? And then they said Mos Eisley. I'm like, oh wow, they're going there.
Yeah, I thought, man, look. I mean, when I watched it, it was about 6:30 in the morning, and I was sitting there with my coffee, and I was like, yes, Yes.
And you know what I liked is when the ship was they showed that shot of the ship coming towards the camera with where you see the planet in the foreground. That was the shot that when Luke and Obi-Wan had the land speeder parked and they were looking down and
correct.
Right.
And not only that, the shot of the blockade runner and the Star Destroyer.
Yeah.
The moons.
Right.
It's the same shot. The moons are in the same position.
I mean, there's a lot of the same in this episode.
But
So,
it
you
was
know what I loved
fine.
about this? He sits down. They set the ship down in one of the docking bays, and I thought the whole dynamic of the docking bays being really expanded upon in this show was such a treat. I liked how it had its own grease monkey and crew per se. That's ready
we get to see the pit droids.
Yeah, the pit droids come back
an
out.
appearance.
I thought it was so cool. I'm like,
I liked it
makes
too.
sense. It makes sense. Like this is like their job. Ships come and they offer services to repair and stuff. It's like a garage. It made a lot of sense, and it kind of painted the full picture now from what we got in just a little bit in A New Hope.
Yeah, and he took a shot at those droids and they instantly collapsed, which was he shot at the ground and they were like,
Hit the nose.
yeah, that was pretty funny.
I liked the character Hallie, the mechanic.
The grease
an
monkey.
elf.
Yeah, the grease monkey. I thought she was well cast.
She was also in Strangers with Candy.
And she looks like she just stepped out of 1977. This mechanic looked like she stepped straight out of the first movie. I mean, she just reeked of the 70s.
She fit in perfect.
I agree. And so we find out that he's going to need a lot of repairs. And it seemed he's like, I only have 500 Imperial credits, which seemed kind of low to me because I'm equating credits with dollars. So, $500, that's on a cheap day, that's what the dealership's going to charge me to fix my car is $500.
She said it just basically covered his parking at the hangar.
Yeah. So then she was like, yeah, that's only going to cover your parking. So he locks up the kid in his little cot bedroom on the ship.
Which seemed like bad judgment to me.
This Baby Yoda has already proven to be very resourceful in getting out of this ship. So.
I'm going to say right now, there's a lot of questionable judgment this whole episode as it relates to Baby Yoda. But, dude, okay, so he walks out onto the street again.
Great shot of Mos Eisley.
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
It's like you're back.
It was just like, it's like we've seen Mos Eisley, we've seen the Cantina so many times, but this was like going back to the Cantina maybe like on a Tuesday morning.
Yeah.
I noticed there's like 3 people walking around. I can imagine it's like when I would go to the shopping center on Saturday mornings before all the stores open, and just be like a few people milling about.
Yes. It's funny that you say shopping center. You really are 85.
So we find at the bar, the same kind of droid that was the droid torture boss in
EV-99.
EV-99 in Jabba's palace.
I was kind of hoping that was EV-99.
I don't know if it was or if it was supposed to be, but
it sounded
sure sounded like it. And
well,
obviously
Richard McQuan did the voice of EV-99, so obviously he's dead.
Well, I don't think that's a hard one to replicate.
There were a couple of different models too. I mean, there were a few of them.
But it could be the same. I mean, listen, that droid obviously survived. He was in the palace while the sail barge blew up. Found new work.
R5D4 was in there, and he was the R5 unit that exploded in New Hope.
Was that the same one?
It looked just like him, but
I mean, more importantly, the Mandalorian's looking for work at the bar. He's talking to the droid, and a newbie behind him says he can give him some work. And where's the newbie sitting?
He's right where McClunky happened.
Right where McClunky, the famous McClunky.
Yeah, same. I looked on the wall to see if they would have had any of the scorch marks or anything, but I guess they've cleaned it up since then.
Good for them.
But, something else.
I'm surprised there wasn't like a plaque there.
Well,
this is where
that
Han
just says
Solo
McClunky
shot Greedo in cold blood.
So I thought that this guy was going to be a ruse. I thought he was actually going to be a bit of a ringer, feigning that he's a newbie, but it didn't quite turn out that way.
Yeah, he wasn't there wasn't like, even from the moment you see him, there wasn't really anything like, he wasn't really exceptional or anything. He was just like it's like you feel like he's like some guy they picked out of a portfolio. Here, use this guy.
I'm
We'll use
guessing
this guy.
that his backstory, which we don't know, but I'm guessing that this character's backstory though is that he comes from a wealthy family and that he's just kind of out there to make a name for himself in the criminal world because he obviously didn't need the money. We find out later he's loaded, but he offers the Mandalorian a little bit of work by teasing him with a bounty.
The Mandalorian could keep all the money. He just needed the job to get into the guild.
Yeah. So Mandalorian needs a little bit of work to repair a ship, so he accepts to help this guy track down a former crime syndicate, kind of like
Assassin.
a hitman assassin, which I thought was pretty cool. But this assassin had escaped out into the dune sea of Tatooine, so we get to see some pretty...
Meanwhile, back at the ship,
Back at the nursery.
we have an ET moment
Yes.
where they're hearing the noises and Baby Yoda just comes strolling out, which you knew. I mean, you'd think even the Mandalorian
Yeah, he's
would
like, this
he'll
ain't
be
gonna,
all right.
This ain't gonna work.
It's like putting a bunch of snakes in a crib. It's like, yeah, they'll stay in there.
So Baby Yoda comes walking out of the ship, just looking around, like, hey, what's going on?
He don't care.
No,
Yeah,
he
he's
doesn't.
like, whatever.
And the what's her name? The grease monkey.
Hallie? Hallie?
Pally, I think. I
Pally?
think it's. According to closed caption, I think it started with a P.
Okay.
But anyway, she is like, well, what are you doing? And Pelly decides she's going to charge the Mandalorian extra for babysitting.
Which I thought was funny.
Now, before we leave the bar, our friend Charlie texted me and Mike earlier and said,
yeah.
did you notice that droids are running the bar now?
That's a very good point.
Whereas before it was, we don't serve their kind here.
That's a great point.
So in just a few years, the droids have apparently bought the bar.
Run amok.
Yes.
That's funny. That's a good point.
So
We also had another theory about Pelly. What's her name?
Yeah,
Pelly?
Pelly
Yeah.
Moto.
Yeah, that she's the little girl in episode 1 who's when Anakin is building his pod, and she's the little girl goes, "That'll never work."
Oh, maybe that'd be fun. It's a good.
But anyway,
hey, good for them if they can use that connective tissue. You know, before we move off of the Yoda scene, though, you know, something that Filoni did much better than Lucas did was he didn't make the pit droids into the Three Stooges. They were still funny,
goofy,
but they weren't
yeah.
the Three Stooges doing a routine. It was
they weren't like, doing the curly Mo eye
that's
poke.
what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like it was actually much funnier to see them like this
Subdued.
than deliberate in deliberately being Three Stooges.
Absolutely. So the Mandalorian sends off. His name's Calican, right? I think his last name's Calican. This kid. He sends him off to get a couple of speeder bikes, and then apparently, because I watched in my second watch through, he doesn't leave Pelly any explicit instructions to watch the kid. He just leaves the kid there with her. And this is the part of the episode that pulled me out of it a little bit, because so much of this series has been him protecting the child that he seems.
And we know there's bounty hunters after this.
Yes,
this kid.
He's not safe, but he's just ready to go off on a grand merry chase with this stranger, and leave the child with another stranger. So
Stranger danger.
Well, at the same time, it's not out of his character. I mean, we've seen him do this already at the backwater bar where he flipped the bartender a coin to watch the baby. He was quick to hand the baby off at the farm. So I mean, I think he can recognize trustworthy people.
yeah,
fast
that's fine.
But we get to see some great speeder bike action.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. They were kind of like the swoop bikes we've heard a lot about.
A little bit like swoops. You know,
Yeah.
Watching this sequence, though, really made me think how impractical wearing a cape is.
Yeah, because it's just billowing out behind him. It's
man,
just
I
got to
just
be
keep thinking,
causing all kinds of drag.
It can't be. I mean, that's not efficient at all to be wearing a cape on a speeder bike.
But it looks cool.
It looked
Yeah.
great. It looked great.
Yeah,
with those-
and I like them speeding along in the desert, and they happen upon some Tuscan Raiders,
Oh,
which was
funny.
which was another great callback. When I was watching this scene, it occurred to me that maybe this is how Tuscan Raiders might entrap people by putting a few banthas and sand people
yeah.
like way out in front of somebody.
Sure.
And the other ones, because that's what they did to Luke in
Yeah,
episode
that's
4.
true.
But it was cool, to see. Of course, you see the sand people through the electro binoculars, and it's just brings you right back, of course, to New Hope. And then he goes,
I love the scene where he. Yeah, go ahead.
Why don't you ask him yourself? And they turn
Yeah,
around and they're right there. And the kid's like, "Hey!" But and
uh,
no sign language apparently.
The Mandalorian
Well-
negotiates with the Sand People with sign language, and
yeah,
they take the binoculars from the
passage.
kid, and that's good enough for them to move through.
which
the
is
land.
it's kind of cool because we've never seen that from the Sand People before. They've always been sort of just savages and menacing, but they were communicating with him, and they worked out a deal, and nobody got hurt.
Yeah.
So that was kind of cool.
Or he could have tried to cry Dragon Call.
Yes, he totally could have done that. So
But then they encounter further down the trail
yes, a kind of a really strange, unsettling image of a dead body being pulled by a dewback.
That was almost Walking Dead-ish.
Yeah, the poor
Yeah.
dewback's just sitting there roaming, and its rider
His
is
corpse.
yeah, just dragged along the ground there. But so the Mandalorian goes down to check out what's going on. He finds that it's a bounty hunter. He's got a fob, and then he gets shot.
It's a trap.
It is indeed.
I should call this episode "The Trap."
Well, so I think it was cool. He got hit, in the Beskar and, flung backwards and scrambles back. Did he get shot twice?
Yeah, he got
Yes.
shot right
Yeah.
on the end when he got back to his dune.
Yes.
So the bounty is a remarkable sniper marksman and is tagging the Mandalorian, and he barely gets out. And luckily, the Beskar steel is enough to protect him because he talks about the weapon that she's using. If he had been any closer at that range, the Beskar would have failed. So he got lucky with this person. But she's obviously a formidable opponent here. She's quite talented with a gun, and we find out she's quite talented with hand-to-hand combat. So she's a tough cookie, and it's her.
Yeah. It is Ming Na Wen from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Yep.
Yeah.
And so they got to wait it out. They got to wait it out.
Shand.
Yes,
Fennec.
Fennec.
I like the scene where he thinks the Mandalorian's asleep,
And he
he's
starts messing with
drawing on him, and then he goes, "Are you done?"
him. Yeah. Are you finished? Which he's like, yeah, I was just waking you up. But
So the
yes.
Mandalorian, before that, the Mandalorian declares they can't make a move because it's daylight, and she has the quote high ground. So
Yes.
in the Star
Yeah,
Wars
so it's
galaxy,
little-
high ground equals
That means
domination every
that's
time.
it. You don't even try. You just come back later. And then they've got a kind of a cool little way to get by her scope, and that's to have these flares that they fire to blind her, and it works. So they close the distance on her and get the drop on her, and
They get the drop on her, and the young kid,
That's
the young
right.
kid sneaks up on her and then tries to get the drop on her, but then she kind of wrecks his world a bit.
yeah, they
The
fight.
Mandalorian appears and says, "Hey, good distraction."
Yep. And then
So-
And then they have her.
slaps
Yeah.
the cuffs on her.
And then there's a choice to be made. Either the kid or the Mandalorian have to go out and rescue a dewback because they're down to one speeder bike.
Yeah, because didn't one of the she blew up one of the speeders.
Right. She shot one of the speeder bikes. So to get her back and to get everyone back, they need to get that wandering dew back and bring it back, and so they can all have a ride. So the Mandalorian goes out and he decides he's going to bring it back. And then the conversation.
She reveals that the Mandalorian is probably worth way more than she is.
She's got his number. She knows what happened and what his situation was.
That he is he's protecting a bounty that is also very valuable, and maybe if they work together, then they'll. She's obviously trying to talk her way out of the cuffs, but and I was surprised at this. Calican just shoots her in the gut.
Yeah, that was surprising.
He's like,
okay. It was like,
and for a second there, it was so like calculated and cold-blooded. I thought, well, then this kid is more than he appears to be. But
that's what I thought too.
But he really wasn't. He was just, he saw his shot and he was taking it literally. So I'm curious whether she's dead. I think there's a tiny scene we'll talk about in a minute.
So the Mandalorian comes back and sees Fennec's body crumpled up and shot, and he realizes he's been double-crossed. So he hurries back to Mos Eisley, where he finds...
As fast as he can
right
on his mount. Now, there is a cool shot that I know that Filoni probably recreated on purpose. There's a famous picture of a stormtrooper astride a dewback from 1977.
Oh, yeah, that. It was on the toy.
Box. Yes, it's shot from a low angle. You can see the dewback's eye, and it's looking up at the stormtrooper. He recreated that shot, but with the Mandalorian. And there's no way that wasn't on purpose. But, yeah, he gets back to Mos Eisley. It's kind of... I was surprised how kind of sleepy and not busy it seemed.
Well, we'd never seen Mos Eisley at dusk.
Yeah, that's true.
And it was, to your point, it seemed very peaceful. There was a little light on the horizon. There's a couple lights that were turned on and blinking in Mos Eisley, but it seemed very quiet. And it was interesting. We'd never seen Mos Eisley in that light before.
Correct. But, he comes back to Hangar 35, and he knows something is up because he's got his weapon drawn.
That Mandalorian's no dummy.
Well, he sees that Calican has taken the baby and Peli hostage, and he's going to make his name. He's going to become a legend, or so he thinks.
But he obviously makes short work of him. He uses a flare that he used in the desert, gets the distraction, and takes the kid out. And steals his money, and then pays Peli with it.
Yeah.
So it was a win-win, actually.
Yeah,
but it was apparently quite a big purse the kid was carrying on him. So, his whole motto of "I don't need the money" was true. He was loaded. So
and
he was just out for the fortune and glory. Well, just the glory.
Yeah, and so he got his ship taken care of and his babysitting money all there in that one shot.
So the ship takes off, and that's the last we see of the Mandalorian in this episode. However, the end scene was a bit of a mystery. We see the crumpled up body of Fennec in the desert, and she's approached by some very familiar looking feet and a cape. What are your thoughts?
Okay. I think there are several possibilities.
Okay.
Go through each one of them.
Do we hear spurs?
Yes.
So is that the Gunslinger the title's referring to?
No, the spurs are Boba Fett.
Exactly.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
And if you look, it is Boba Fett's boots and his torn cape as he walks up. His feet are unmistakable in that one. And you hear the spurs, and you're like,
wow, I didn't catch that. I didn't realize Boba Fett wore spurs.
They use spurred boots as a sound for his footfalls in Empire Strikes Back.
I mean,
I don't think he literally has spurs on his boots.
There is no mistaking that's who this is. It is Boba Fett. He has reemerged, folks. He has survived the pit.
Well, I think don't.
I'm making a big leap here, but
Don't get ahead of yourself.
no. Who
I
else
hope
could it
he's
be?
like
Who
half
else could it be?
digested, like he's all weird
Like
looking.
a toxic Avenger.
Well,
Yeah.
here's what I've thought is that Tamora Morrison.
Each day is pain for me.
Tamora Morrison is at this time.
The right age.
He's probably in. No, he's older. He's probably in his. He's in his 50s by now.
Right.
Boba Fett, at this time, would be in his 40s. But
Not too far off.
I
But
think
with a
I think
weathered
if it-
world of Tatooine
but look, if they scar him up somehow with some makeup, they could eat like the wounds he received in the Sarlacc. Maybe they could pull off Tamora Morrison.
I mean, unless it's a complete random thing that happens to look like Boba Fett's costume and it has the sound effect, it's got to be Boba Fett. It's got to be Boba Fett.
Wow, I didn't even pick up
Well,
on that at all.
Now the other possibilities I thought were Apollo Grief.
Yeah, but maybe.
And the as unyet seen Imperial played by Esposito, which
yeah,
we've
but the
not
cape was
met yet.
torn, and everything we've seen from the trailers is that Esposito's character looks fairly polished.
Yeah,
I'd have to watch it again.
yeah. I'm gonna have to take another look, but I did think of that.
Yeah. I'm watching
And-
it right after we're done recording this. I have to watch it again. This episode from start to finish was a Star Wars fan's dream episode, except for Mike, who doesn't like desert planets. But
No.
this thing was amazing. There's no other way of saying it. This show is delivering every episode, and it's just getting better and better.
Yes, it's fan service, but I don't care. I mean,
Well, this is what I
because
want to eat. I want
it's-
this for dinner every night.
Look, because when you saw Tatooine, you saw Mos Eisley, the cantina, all that stuff, man, that just scratched all the right itches. You
That's
know,
right.
that is, and it was so well done. It looked like they just went to Tunisia and shot that stuff.
Man,
And I
haven't-
know they didn't. They shoot it in California, so that's even more impressive.
Plus, if they go to Tunisia now, they'll probably get killed.
Yes, correct.
I haven't felt this excited about Star Wars since The Last Jedi. So, no.
Oh, boy.
The show is delivering. The show is great. Everyone is talking about it for a reason. The show is a watchable, worth watching show if you're a fan or not. It's dragging everybody in on this. So,
Speaking of everyone watching it, while I was watching it this morning while the boys were getting ready, and they walked in and they said to me, they go, "Is this Baby Yoda?"
And they
they said that.
And David said, "Everyone's talking about
You know
this."
what? Hold on. Let me pause real quick. Mike, you said something to us on the chain earlier. Mike, the day we were recording this, took a day off from work. Mike, what was your day like?
tell us your day, Mike.
Well, okay. I woke up, tried to watch The Mandalorian. The boys came down. They wanted to watch it, so we started watching the first chapter, and we could only watch 10 minutes because their bus was coming. So then they got on their bus. I watched the rest of chapter 4. Then I watched A New Hope, and then I played the new Star Wars game before meeting my wife for lunch. And then I met my wife for lunch, and she says, "What have you been doing all day?" And I told her what I was doing all day, and she was not too happy with that. She's like,
Dude,
I could give you a list of stuff to do.
you got to throw in laundry or something, man. Come on.
Well, I told her I'd started folding clothes.
Yeah,
But
and
anyways,
I remember.
thanks.
It was. Sorry, go ahead.
No, we had
I was just gonna make fun of Mike for being too lazy to turn on the HDR on his 4K television. Hey, this New Hope 4K looks pretty washed out. Did you turn on HDR? I don't care about that. Oh wait, I did. It looks better now. Yeah. So, that was a fantastic episode. Another great one, and it's gonna be another long 7 days until the next one.
7 days. But then the next one will be shorter.
Yeah. Then we only have to wait like 5 days for the next.
That's true. So it's not too late. Get your Disney Plus membership. Go watch The Mandalorian. It's a quick watch. Each episode is just over 30 minutes, so you can catch up fast if you haven't watched it. So stay tuned until next week when we come back with the Carbonite Chronicles and review another one.
You know you can't live without this content, so subscribe to The Hyperspace, podcasting in the 25th century. Follow us on social media, leave us a review, and join us here next time as we take you into the 25th century.